Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Terry Fletcher.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the WTF podcast, Steel City Underground. My name is Terry Fletcher. So this is week 13 of What the Football, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Well, first, I really want to talk about the Steelers because it's fresh in my mind. We got a back-to-back win, and this is the first time this season. We won 19-16 in Atlanta, and again, second road win. I'm pretty excited about this because it looked like a home game for the Steelers. Even the announcers saw it that way, even though the announcers are a little suspect with their political commentary. If you looked at Twitter, everybody was like, don't even talk about that because we don't do it here. If we did, we'd have all kinds of controversy. But that being said, we're 5-7 now, which as bad as that is, because it's not a winning record, we're still in the conversation. I saw we're actually in the last rung of that conversation as far as making the postseason. But you know what? We're looking a little more dominant than we have. So instead of the offense just really going dormant in the second half, and our defense just letting it go, they didn't. Minkah Fitzpatrick, he sealed the win with an interception. And I want to comment on Minkah's play. He could have just walked into the end zone. He would have taken a hit, but he could have scored for a pick six. But he didn't, because that's what unselfish players do. He basically went down to the ground while he did out of bounds so that we could, because he knew as soon as he caught that, we were winning. We already were ahead by 3. We basically, because the field goal was missed, and it was long, but there was all we had to do was get the ball back and stop them from getting in the end zone. I think we all made the assumption that the best case scenario would have been the field goal to tie it up and then possibly overtime. But that was such a great thing that he did to not try and get the touchdown for his stats, but to just get out of bounds, go down, whatever, just end the play, because with 30 seconds left, it was a win at that point. But here's where we have to really, and I say we, I'm talking about the Steelers, here's where things need to really pick up. In the first quarter, we held Atlanta to just 28 rushing yards. That was fantastic. I mean, I've got Cordell Patterson in my fantasy league, and he did terrible. But then we get into the second quarter, and the Falcons' ground game definitely woke up because, particularly in the fourth quarter, all they did was run down the field. They had a 9-minute drive in the fourth quarter that put 40 yards on the board, 118 total for the second half rushing yards, and we can't let that happen. The defense has to know how to protect the run game, make sure that they're not getting those big chunks of yards, and that was a mobile quarterback that Mike Tomlin talked about prior to the game. And the Falcons could have pushed ahead of us on the fourth quarter drive, but they had untimely penalties in the red zone, which now kills you. Now, the other thing that, and I'm going to say this is probably a great platform for me to vent about Diontae Johnson. I mean, what the football. And for those of you that like that extension, that think he's worth it, I don't know what you're looking at, because I would have rather kept Chase Claypool, how inexpensive he was on his 5th year, and given Diontae Johnson, go test the waters, because, dude, you dropped the ball more than anybody in the league. You did it again. Balls just go through your hands. And not only that, he tends to when he catches a ball, he goes backwards before forwards, and I've said that before. And he just can't seem to understand what it means to go forward, take those combat catches and win them. And I mean, it's like he's got soap on his hands or something. I don't know what it is, but it's starting to affect the team, because if you look at what happened less than a week ago, Monday Night Football, Pickett and Pickens were a great target and team duo going out there. They had 3 receptions, 57 yards, and it was awesome. But when you look at what happened to Pickens, who was basically, George was non-existent in this game, and you see what Diontae Johnson is doing and recording a second drop of the game, and they call it, 4th for the year. And then he also had a fumble recovered by Atlanta, but they said that he didn't make the 3rd move, thank God. But Pickens walked off the field frustrated, and visibly frustrated, as he should have been. Now, I know the wide receivers coach, Jackson, sat with him. So did Cameron Cameron Hayward, the defensive captain, I'm sure saying, you're going to get your opportunities. But when he had 1 catch for 2 yards and he makes those catches, it's hard for me to understand why he's not the target. He should be the number 1 target. He's the one that Kenny is really, trusting with the ball. And how can we keep trusting Deontay Johnson? That's all I'm saying. I don't understand the trust there. I don't understand continuing. Ben had issues with him, and it was just, we don't need the nail biter. And every time he gets the ball, we're trying to figure out, is he going to lose it? Is he going to drop it? Is he going to catch it? Is he going to continue to run behind the line of scrimmage instead of forward towards the first down? And it's frustrating for fans as much as it is for Pickens. So I feel your pain, buddy. Just hang in there, because hopefully it'll all work out. But oh my gosh, if coach doesn't talk to him, some coach, any coach, he's going to be the death of this team, in my opinion. I just think that he's going to be a problem. So I'll move on from that. But boy, it really drives me crazy. So there was a funny part in the Kansas City-Cincy game. First of all, Kansas City lost to Cincinnati. All the AFC North teams won, which doesn't help the Steelers at all. We need some of them to lose to help out in our climbing the ladder. But they all won. Kansas City lost to, or I should say Cincinnati beat Kansas City by 3 and, 27-24. And I had a 414 parlay. I had Steelers with +1. They won. I had Minnesota -4. They won by 5. I had Green Bay -4. They won by 10. And then Kansas City only had to beat the Cincinnati Bengals by 1.5 points. Could they do it? No. They're 0-3 against Cincinnati in the last times they played them, and I guess I should have known. But there was something that was a definite what the football. I don't know if you saw it on the playback. Jesse Bates, who's a safety for Cincinnati, so he sees that they're in the end zone, and he sees that Cincinnati's making substitutions and to put people in and out. And so they weren't getting the person off the field quick enough, and the Chiefs were trying to get ready quickly to get into and get a penalty called, and he takes a flop and grabs his knee, and you could see it. Even Tony Romo was like, oh, dude, because he came in the next play. He didn't go into the blue tent. There was nothing wrong with him. He walked off the field after they pulled him up quickly. He didn't even limp off the field. But you know what? To me, that's a what the football BS, if you ask me. I mean, don't cheat. Don't cheat. Just try and win the game. It's crazy to me. And somebody's got to look at those substitutions. There was another tie. We haven't seen one since the first week in football. The Washington Commanders and the Giants, 2020 in overtime. That was an interesting game. It seemed like towards the end they were both just playing for the tie. Baltimore Ravens. Oh boy, did they win? Yes, 10-9. They won over the Denver Broncos, but it was actually not with Lamar Jackson. He was carted off the field with a knee injury. They said it could be days, possibly weeks, that he's out with that. But their backup quarterback and their defense basically held him in tow for that. We definitely could have used some kind of loss there. Detroit put up a 40-burger. Good for you against the Jags. That was definitely what the football. Aaron Rodgers, we weren't sure if he was going to play this week, but does he own Chicago still? 28-19 says he does. They didn't at the beginning, 19-3, 19-6, and I'm like, wow, he's actually going to lose, even playing with a rib injury and a broken finger. Nope, they won, and that actually helped me. Cleveland, the worst. Okay, so does it drive you crazy when you beat a team and you hear the pundits on TV, on the radio, whatever, and they're basically like, oh, Cleveland's back. It's great. They're this, they're that. I mean, their defense scored 45 fantasy points because of how bad the worst team in football at 1-10-1 played. I mean, that is the Texans. Now, was everybody excited to see, excited is the bad word, was everybody interested to see how Cleveland's Browns quarterback, troubled quarterback, I should say, Deshaun Watson was going to do? Well, he returned from his 11-game suspension, and just as a reminder, from violating the NFL's personal conduct policy, and he was definitely underwhelming. He was 12 for 22, 131 yards passing, 1 interception, and he had a quarterback rating of 28.6. So but you know what? Stop putting his photo up. It makes me cringe. I can't believe he still gets to play this year. It's really bugging me. But then we look at Cousins, the Minnesota Vikings beat the Jets by 5. And then in Indy at Dallas, that was a crazy game. How many points were they going to put up on Matt Ryan's Indianapolis Colts? And they put up 54 points. They forced 5 turnovers, 3 interceptions by Matt Ryan to win 54-19. Oh my gosh, that was just the most ridiculous game you'd ever want to watch. Matt Ryan, I don't know what you're going to do, but you're sure not making a new coach or interim coach, Jeff Saturday, look good for bringing you back in. Because, I heard today that the quarterback Baker Mayfield from the Panthers, formerly the Cleveland Browns, was released. Wow, that's a contract. But is Matt Ryan next? They both have these monster contracts, and you just don't know how they're continuing to play with how bad they play. So we'll see what happens with that. 49ers, some sad news. They actually beat Miami 33-17. They now have the same record, but one's NFC, one's AFC. But Jimmy Garoppolo went down. You could clearly see that one of the defenders on Miami stepped on his foot and they broke it. So he has a broken left foot. He has to have surgery this week, and we just send our prayers out to Jimmy G. It was actually sad because they were saying on Sunday that the 49ers were definitely open to extending his contract after he reworked his contract to stay in San Francisco and came in for, their first round pick that they were going to replace him with. And he's been good and decent and really stepping it up, and just he hasn't been a jerk about, saying things like, well, I told you should have left me in or keep me or whatever. And I think this is going to be a problem. So who came in? Somebody called Brock Purdy, the last player taken in the 2021 draft in the 7th round. And they call that person Mr. Irrelevant because they never really go anywhere. But now he'll have to lead the 49ers, who are now 8-4. He did pretty well. He was 25 for 37, 210 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, but it was a pop off somebody else's body. But, it'll be interesting to see. The only thing they have on their roster on the practice squad is somebody they just signed who was an undrafted free agent rookie. So I think they may have to go and get some kind of a vet, but who's available? And please do not say the former quarterback that it was in 6-7 years ago in San Francisco. That would not be good. But now we're going into Monday Night Football. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're 5-7. Now, did I say that? No, I was also talking about the Steelers who are 5-7. But here's the difference in AFC and NFC. AFC is very competitive. NFC, especially NFC South, not so much. So the Tampa Bay Buccaneers actually lead the NFC South with a 5-7 record, and it's by a lot. And so if they win the Monday Night Football, they could actually get a commanding lead in that division with a losing record. They're playing the Saints, who are 4-8. The Falcons are 5-8 because the Steelers just beat them, and the Panthers are 4-8. And so if they win and get into 6-7, that'll be definitely an interesting situation to deal with. And it's still the New Orleans Saints are still being led by Andy Dalton, but Bucs have Tom Brady, and I would be very surprised on Monday Night Football if he loses. So stay tuned for that. We'll see what happens. But can you imagine winning a division with a losing record? That, to me, that's just wrong. But it is how it works out. That's why they have divisions. And I'm just really happy that at least the Steelers are in the top 16 conversation with the 5-7 record. So we need to win out or win a few more games to continue in that obscure conversation where there's an off chance possibility that we could make the postseason. This sounds funny, but I like Mike Tomlin so much. I don't want him to have a losing season. So we'd have to win out for that not to happen. But let's see what happens. So everyone, thank you for listening to WTF Podcast today. Make it a great rest of your week and a great day. And we'll see you next week.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.